give people a few minutes to get into the room.
And if nobody comes, we will declare it an amazing success.
Yeah, no one.
Right?
Yeah, but what I would still like to do is go through the session as if the room were full, and then we can still have this resource.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Great. I see some people are starting to enter the room. Hi, Bob. Bob, so we have a chat on the side, so you can, if you would like, you can introduce yourself in the chat, just maybe your industry if you like, or you don't have to. But the chat is how we're going to do our Q&A or our Qs, so our questions can come in through the chat, and Pam's going to answer those near the end of the presentation. Pam, you're sharing all your slides.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how I can see the chat, but I don't think I can.
That's okay. I can relay these chat questions to you at the end or when you are done your slides.
Sure, that sounds great.
Great. I'm just going to give it another minute or so, and then I'll hit to some introductions, and we can get started this morning.
Diet Pepsi, breakfast of champions.
Bob, are you able to enter anything into the chat? I just don't know if I just want to make sure people are able to chat. Okay, perfect. I see you. Great. So I'll just I think we should just get started, and people may join us as we go this morning. I know it's an early morning session, so people are just getting their coffees and getting started here. So I'll make an introduction to myself first. My name is Amanda McDonald, and I'm an Economic Development Officer with the City of St. Albert. I'm in the Business Retention and Expansion Program, so we're helping small businesses in St. Albert get access to resources, help them with their permitting, help them just face any challenges that may come up while they're trying to grow their business in St. Albert. So that's myself, and we're lucky to be joined today by Pam Ross, and she is also new to the City of St. Albert team. Pam is a community development coordinator with City of St. Albert. Her focus is on healthy lifestyles and mental health. She has a bachelor's degree in psychology from the U of A and has been working in mental health for many years. She's worked for Alberta Health Services as a mental health promoter and adult educator. Recently, Pam worked for City of Edmonton in Employee Services Department as a mental health and healthy living consultant, where her focus was on employee health and well-being. Pam is excited to join St. Albert FCSS team to support and educate both the general public and community agencies about mental illness and improving mental health. Sorry, my eyes are watering this morning. Thank you, Pam, for joining us. Looking forward to this presentation.
Thanks, Amanda.
Again, just before I throw it over, is chat is on the side. Feel free to ask your questions through there, and I can relay them at the end to Pam.
Perfect. So we can just get started?
Please go ahead.
All right, so thank you everybody for coming this morning. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about maintaining positive mental health, and certainly that's a struggle considering we're living in COVID world, and things are more uncertain than they have been in years before. And you're going to see some struggles with your employees. You're going to see them just like your neighbors, just like yourself and your own family. Some people are really struggling with the stress. So let's talk about what we can do about that and how we can help support them. So first of all, I'd like to acknowledge that we're on Treaty 6 territory. We respectfully acknowledge that we are on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional lands of First Nations and Métis people. As treaty people, Indigenous and non-Indigenous, we share the responsibility for stewardship on this beautiful land. So just a little outline. We're going to talk about why mental health is an important thing. Why is it kind of gathering an awful lot of spotlights lately? We'll talk about how COVID-19 is affecting everybody, including your staff. I think I just leaned on something beeped in my ear. And we're going to talk about how our bodies react to stress and what is that there's like a hormonal cascade that happens when we're in a stressful situation. So, what does that look like? What does it feel like? We will talk about what you can do because you are in leadership positions, and what you do really helps the people under you. It gives them a sense of confidence and security. And so, you can do a lot, which is really great. I'm also going to spend just one slide talking about some of the distressed customers that your employees are having to deal with, and some of the inappropriate behavior that we're seeing, and how to support yourself. So how do you support yourself? How do you support your staff? And what are local resources available? What are provincial resources, federal resources? There's a lot of really good stuff out there, and I've given you kind of my pick of the crop. So mental health has always been an important thing. Of course, I'm biased because I have a mental health background and I work in mental health. But before COVID, we talked about 1 in 5 people being affected by mental illness. And in recent polls, up to 50% of Canadians are now saying that their mental health is in decline because of COVID-19. So they're really struggling. Now, obviously, healthy, productive employees is what we want. They're good for business. They pay more attention to what their tasks are. They do them well. They spend more time with customers. They have a more ready smile. These are all things that we want our employees to have. Unfortunately, when employees are struggling with their mental health, we're going to see absenteeism, we're going to see presenteeism. So a lot of people understand the term absenteeism. It means that they're just not coming to work. They're calling in sick a lot, and their commitment to the job doesn't seem to be there. Presenteeism is a more new term, and it's about people who come to work, but they're not doing any work. And so there's a lot of concern around that because it's harder to deal with. If somebody's not on the job, they can't argue with you that they weren't there that day. Presenteeism is a little harder to correct. Now, of course, if you had to temporarily lay off any employees during the shutdown, and maybe you've hired them all back now, there might be a need to build back up a little bit of trust and morale. They might be coming back to work a little less confident, and so spending a little bit of time talking about that, acknowledging that, can really make a difference. Now, there's a lot of extra work that COVID has come along with. So, having to clean and sanitize all the stations regularly, excuse me, I have allergies. Okay. Um, so there's extra work, cleaning, sanitizing. I work in an office and I'm in a borrowed office today because I normally live in a cubicle. And I know that when I leave this setting, I have to get the Lysol wipes and I have to pay attention to everything that I've touched in here and I have to wipe it before I leave the office. And that's nothing compared to somebody who's working a till and having to sanitize between every single customer. So there's a lot going on. There's a pressure to stay healthy, and of course, the fear that you're going to get sick and have to lose your job or lose all the income while you're sick. And this isn't like the cold, you're not better in a week. Most people are still struggling after a month with their health. Um, and there's the fear of bringing the virus home, and whether you have people in your family that are vulnerable or you have contact with elderly relatives, there's a real fear there. When we talk about anxiety, we talk about it being a fear reaction when nothing is threatening. We can't really call that everything we're going through anxiety right now, because we have a fear, but it's a fear of a very real virus that's really, really damaging people's health, and in some cases, causing fatality. So we need to be a little bit kind to ourselves and stop labeling everything anxiety and admit that, yeah, you know what? I'm scared of this. This is fear inducing. Some of the public health actions that have been taken, such as social distancing, encouraging people to only go for groceries once a week, can make people feel isolated and lonely and increase stress and anxiety. So, you might find that when employees are actually at work or whether they're on Zoom calls with the rest of the office, that's their time to actually socialize. And without that, they're alone. So just be aware of that. It can be a little frightening, but I mean, these are public health actions for our own good. So, but it's a strange world we're living in. Fear and worry about their financial situation. Um, you might know that they're getting paid regularly because they work for you, and that's all great. But what you don't necessarily know is that their husband was laid off 6 weeks ago, or that their wife is no longer getting any shifts where she works. So there's lots of things that you might not know. So people can be frightened of their financial situation, even though you know that you're paying them regularly. If that makes a lot of sense, I'm not sure. Customer harassment and violence, we'll talk a little bit more about this later. Lack of balance. People who are working from home have now got no division between the workplace and and home. And we used to be able to say, I'll leave work at work. And when I come home, I'm going to be all attention on my kids and making dinner and all of that. It's blurred now. So if you have employees that are working from home, please connect with them and ask them, are you taking your lunch breaks? Are you taking your 15-minute breaks? Are you making sure that if the end of your workday is 5 o'clock, you're actually tuning out at 5 o'clock? And trying to remind them that we need to keep that balance or they're going to burn out. And then, of course, not sure of resources. There are so many resources out there, and it's hard to find what's a quality resource. And of course, I have them at the end of the slideshow today. Now, our stress response is often referred to as fight or flight. And it's also known as the acute stress response if you want to be fancy. And it refers to physiological reactions that happen when we're in the presence of something that is frightening, a stimulus that is saying you need to either run or fight to survive. So it's a panic mode. And it gives us great reactions, and it releases chemicals into our blood to help it clot faster. Your body is expecting to be wounded. And so it's doing everything it can to save you. Digestion shuts down, which is one of the reasons why we feel a little stomach sick when we're stressed out. All the blood that works on the digestive system, reproductive system, that's not where it's needed right now. So all that gets redirected into our arms and our legs with the idea that we're going to have to fight or we're going to have to run. I mean, there's really, really amazing and cool things that happen in our body to defend us when we're in danger. That being said, it is meant to be a short reaction. Oh, look, a bear, run, right? I don't know if you can outrun a bear, probably not, but hopefully they're more interested in berries than you. Um, but it's that quick response, and then we can calm down and relax, and it's all good. Now, what's COVID done in the COVID world? We don't get that downtime. And so we've got this ongoing low level stress response that every once in a while will get a little worse, get a little better, get a little worse. And we're riding this horrible roller coaster where our bodies don't know how to react. So, anybody who already has anxiety, we're seeing a lot more panic attacks. We're seeing all the symptoms that you see listed on this slide. Please take a moment and look at some of these. Not only are they affecting your staff, but they're affecting you, they're affecting your family. So you might see these manifest. One of the other things that we've noticed, especially with kids, and I'll just throw this in because I'm sure many of you have families, we are seeing kids reverting to younger behaviors. So maybe you've got a 7-year-old and all of a sudden they're sucking their thumb again like they did when they were 5, right? So we might see some of that step back in some of those developmental stages. And that's okay. And just be kind and it'll all work out in the end. But yeah, that's why it's happening. It's a stress response. Now, as a leader, I think one of the most amazing things you can do is say, I'm stressed too, when you're talking to your staff, and acknowledging that this stress is affecting everybody. Um, and, um, and, and looking at the stressors that they have, acknowledging that those are stressful. The extra cleaning is stressful. Angry customers, stressful. Just I can see it and I know it's stressful, and maybe open it up. What do you guys think is a better way to do things? And see whether or not they can come up with some great ideas that fit specifically for your work environment. Um, Stress adds up. So in psychological terms, we would call it cumulative. So even though you have a lot of stress, it doesn't mean that you're getting better at dealing with a lot of stress. It means that the stress layers and layers and layers. And if you think about it, your ability to do things in life is an empty cup. And COVID has just filled that cup up half full. And so now you only have half as much energy and concentration, and just ability to do things. It's everything is harder because that stress is taking up a lot of your energy and your focus. So think about this. It's a marathon, not a sprint. I know you've all heard this before, but this is not going away anytime soon. I'm hearing promising things about vaccines, but those are going to be rolled out to healthcare workers long before they hit the general public. So we could be looking at next summer before we're actually getting vaccinated. Um, People have stress at home, so obviously you might be looking around going, "Why are you so stressed out? Today's a great day." But we don't know the rest of that picture. Think of people as icebergs. So 80% is under the water, and you don't know. So be kind as much as possible. Now, if you work for a really large organization, which I don't think anybody here does, then you can encourage your employees to access the Employee Assistance Program or Employee and Family Assistance Program. This is a package deal that some employers can buy where their employees get free access to therapy, mental health therapy. But chances are there's no plan. So at the end, I'll walk you through how to connect with Alberta Health Services, which have uh, psychologists and psychiatrists, and it's free because it's covered with our healthcare. But sometimes they do have waiting lists. And so there's always an option for private counseling. And there's a fund that can be accessed for that. So again, that's at the end of the presentation. So for clear safety expectations, make sure that you and whoever else is in charge. So if you have a manager and a night manager and you're the owner, make sure all three of you are on the same page when it comes to what you're telling staff, so that they're not hearing one thing from one manager and another thing from another. Um, and what you're communicating about, of course, is the COVID safety measures. I also want to raise awareness around the fact that when mental health problems start to creep into a person's workplace, and COVID's creeped into everywhere. When people are stressed out, they are distracted, they have less concentration, and the risk of an accident goes up. We don't call them accidents anymore, we call them incidents. Um, so if there's heavy machinery, if people are driving forklifts, whatever, just make sure that everybody is aware. Constant reminders of PPE, hard hats, gloves. These are the things that people are going to forget because they're preoccupied. So the more safety push you can do, the better. And we'll talk about self-care at the end, and about things that you can do to care for yourself and your staff. And then just a little note here is celebrate successes. Um, it's kind of a gloomy time and everything's a bit depressing. And so the more we can say, oh, Andrea's sister just had a new baby, yay! And encourage Andrea to share some baby pictures amongst the staff, right? We need to still celebrate those wonderful life moments as they happen. So don't forget to point out the good stuff and when things are working well. Um, so this is actually, I jumped ahead. So this is about that physical safety piece. Um, so what we know is that when people are struggling with mental health problems, active mental health symptoms, so that anxiety, depression, the workplace incident or injury rate is equal to if they were impaired by drugs or alcohol. All right. So it's not just like a little thing, it's a big thing. And so the more we can push that safety language, the better. Dealing with distressed customers, we are seeing some stunningly bad behavior from the general public. And some people are very angry about the mask bylaw. Some people are angry that they have to sanitize their hands. And a surprising number are annoyed that they have to pay by Interact. So um, I'm always a bit surprised by this, but what you need to do, and what we're recommending, is that there be some kind of posted sign that refers to you need to respect our staff and we will not tolerate abuse. So I stole one off the internet to give you kind of an example of what it might look like. There's lots for free in Google Image. Train everybody to say the same message. So if you're greeting every customer at the door, make sure that everybody is saying the same thing and they're not going to trip over their words, and just have everybody say the same message. Now, if uh, aggressive customers is something that you're dealing with regularly, make sure that there's two people at the door greeting everybody, and one might be hanging back a couple of steps. But we find that people who are looking for a fight might be less likely to get involved if there's two people standing there than if there's one all by themselves. So sad that we're having to do this, but your safety and the safety of your staff is incredibly important. Be ready to turn people away. So if the customer is starting to throw around abusive statements, starts, throwing things off counters, they're done. They need to leave. And don't be afraid to call 911. They might be long gone by the time the police come, but if you've got a security camera, you've got their picture, um, and it just makes sense that we start to pay attention to how often this is happening. Making sure that people understand that their actions, their negative or violent actions, will end up in a 911 call. Now, just about supporting your workers, how am I doing for time? Oh my gosh, not too bad. Workload management. This is taken from, and it's a long document. It's by the Mental Health Commission of Canada, and it's called Psychological Health and Safety in the Workplace Standard. And it is a CSA standard in Canada. Canada was the first place to make a psychological health in the workplace document. And it goes through 13 different psychosocial factors that you as the employer can pay attention to and tweak to make sure that your workers are the happiest they could be in their work environment. Now, needless to say, I'm not covering all 13. We don't have time. But I pulled out a couple of them because I thought that they made a lot of sense in this particular situation. So, can you vary tasks? So, if somebody's working cash, can they do, I don't know, 4 hours of their shift on cash and then 4 hours in the stock room? Can it be 2 hours on cash, 2 hours stock room, and then back and forth a little bit and have another employee trading off with them? Um, just because dealing with the public and all the extra hand sanitizer and the fear every time you're face to face with another person, even if you're both wearing masks, there's a fear that's another exposure or possible exposure. So there's always that worry in the back of people's minds. And so by trading off, each person is maybe being exposed to less people in general. Can people be given the choice of working from home? I think daycares are mostly reopened now. I'm not sure about that. Schools are back in, but some people are choosing not to send their kids to school because maybe someone in the family is immune compromised. Um, by giving somebody the choice of working from home, it gives them the ability um, to also take some of the pressure off in terms of childcare. And that doesn't mean they're not doing their work because they're hanging out with their kids. Um, but it means that they're not distracted by worry about what's happening with my kids, and then trying to still work in the office. So, just an idea. Psychological demands, there's a lot going on for all of us. So if you can set up any kind of or encourage a buddy system, that would be great. Encourage your staff to check in with each other. And just, that might be a text after hours. That might be first thing in the morning, taking a few minutes to say, hey, how are you today? How's your family? Is everything going okay? Right? And just see where they're at. It can make a huge difference to morale because now people are feeling more socially supported. And it breaks down some of those barriers that say, you're my coworker, not my friend. And if we can blur that a little bit so that maybe coworkers become friends, then that's a built in support system right there in your workplace. And that's the best. Now people want to go to work because they want to see their friends and they're doing their work, but they've got that comradeship. Balance, encouraging your staff to take vacation time that's due them, encouraging them to leave the store if they can at lunch hours, and taking those breaks. We need the breaks to recharge our batteries. And so the more we take breaks, the better. Now, I know a lot of people are thinking, well, I would go on vacation if I could go to Mexico. Um, and I get that. But even time at home can really make a difference to your mental health and really help you through. So, vacation is still good. Now, you might be experiencing some stress symptoms too. And just that's normal. Um, so it's all right to be aware of that. But I'm going to take you through a tool in a minute where we talk about our mental health in terms of a traffic light, basically. So green, healthy, you're doing great. Everything seems to be tickety boo. Reacting, maybe that's just you got caught in a traffic jam on the way to work and you're like, "Argh," right? And it's not a huge thing. We go from green to yellow throughout the day pretty normally. When we hit orange, we're starting to see the beginnings of some symptoms that we would call mental illness symptoms. And of course, red is that you are struggling with a mental illness, or an active addiction. So, or both. So it's interesting to see everything broken down into those four categories. So let's talk a little bit about self care. Um, I get really annoyed with people who say self care is having a glass of wine in a bubble bath with candles. Um, that's not. I mean, that might be self care for somebody, but that's not what most of us need. So, taking care of your emotional health is part of a big picture. So, one of the first things I want to say is taking breaks from news stories is huge. Um, if you're on social media, whether it be Instagram or Facebook or TikTok or whatever, there's an awful lot of American election stuff going on right now. And there is a flood of COVID information, funny memes, but it's like we can't stop hearing that word. And it really makes a difference if you can choose not to go on one day. One day, I'm not going to watch the news and see whether or not that positively affects your mental health. And I think you'll find that it will. Our bodies and our minds are very much connected. In fact, the neurotransmitters that are responsible for whether or not you're struggling with a mental illness are mainly manufactured in our digestive system. So, in your guts, that's where the neurotransmitters are made that make your brain work. So, we need to be whole body healthy to keep our brain healthy. So that's where we get the take care of your body part here. Take deep breaths, stretches. Some people enjoy meditation. Some people do daily prayer. But anything that you can do that really quiets your mind and soothes your soul, for want of a better word. Exercise regularly and to your ability. I've worked with many people with chronic pain who actually get very frustrated when they hear that exercise regularly because not everybody can do what we would call exercise. But even if all it is you get up and take a walk around your house and then go back in the front door, that's something, right? And it's giving you a bit of fresh air, a bit of sunshine. It's good for your mental health. Avoid excess alcohol and drug use. And we're seeing this rise. Um, and I used to be a smoker. And I got to tell you, on bad days, I was smoking a pack in 4 hours. So I totally get this. Even on bad days now, I find myself drinking more coffee than I would normally. So I'm not saying don't drink an alcoholic beverage at the end of a hard day. Excuse me. And I'm not saying that smoking a cigarette is terrible or having an extra drink of coffee or caffeine. Um, what I am saying is on the drive home, are you thinking, I need a drink? Or are you thinking, I would like a drink? So those are very, very different cognitive pathways. So, how are you doing there? Um, so that's just something to put in your mind. Now, the other thing I want to add in is that many people think that having a drink of alcohol will help them get to sleep, and that's just the way they live their lives. But it's a trick, and it's a dirty trick. So you take a drink of alcohol to get to sleep faster, and you do get to sleep faster, but you have really crummy sleep. So the alcohol won't let your body go into stage 4 and 5 sleep. So you end up with a very light sleep, a restless sleep, tossing and turning. You might not be cognizant of it, but the next day you're not as well rested as you would like to be, and you're constantly tired. So just be aware. Alcohol's full of lies right there. All right, try to eat healthy meals. Apparently, vegetables need to be involved. So just be aware every time you sit down at a meal, look and think, is this a healthy meal? Excuse me, I have to cough again. Allergies. All right. Get plenty of sleep. There's all kinds of information on the internet on how to get a good night's sleep. And the term that I recommend you search is sleep hygiene, which doesn't sound right at all. It sounds like you're showering while you're in bed. But sleep hygiene talks about all the environmental things that you can put in place that will make your sleep a better quality. So things like a cool and dark bedroom, quiet, white noise generator if you need it. So that could be the sound of a fan or yeah, I guess fan is the one that comes to mind. At the end of each day, make time to unwind and do something that you enjoy. Um, there's something called the flow state, and that's something that we really are encouraging people to do. And that is when you have you ever been, working on your car or maybe making some crafts or something, and somebody says, "Hey, what's for dinner?" And you look at your clock, your watch, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, it's 5 o'clock already? I thought it was like 2." So when you've had that moment, you've experienced missing time. And what it means is while you were doing that process, whether it was crafts or fixing a car or whatever, is your brain was so happy and so involved with that task that it went on a mini vacation while you were doing that. And what we know is that that's really good for the brain, and it helps make all kinds of really good connections. So if you can find something where you have that missing time, even if you only do it once a week, it's a huge thing. It's a great, wonderful thing to do. Connect with others, talk to people you trust, whether that be friends, family, whether you yourself are accessing a mental health counselor. But the more we can say, what's going on, the better. There are certainly times when I'll talk to a family member and say, today I just really felt like I couldn't breathe all day. I felt like I just couldn't seem to catch my breath. And they'll say, yeah, I could feel my heart beat all day. My heart was just pounding. It's like, yeah, it's just one of those days. And just that acknowledgement that we're all going through it can make a huge difference. So another option, of course, is connecting with your community or a faith-based organization, so church, synagogue, elder, and just, of course, how you connect might be different now. You might be connecting online through social media. Um, You might be volunteering, but in a different capacity than you were before. But anytime we can give back to society, it actually improves our mental health. So. So this is the mental health continuum that the psychological health and safety in the workplace standard talks a lot about. In your quick links on the last page, and it's also included in a PDF that will be circulated to you. There's a link to the mental health continuum model. What you're looking at here is a very, very shortened version. And you can click through and think, okay, well, how am I doing? I'm actually sleeping all right, so that's a good thing. I'm tired though, and I've got the low energy, and I've got that nervousness. And then you might come over here and go, oh, I've got all of these, right? And it gives you a language to talk about your mental health. This continuum was originally written and created by the Department of National Defense in response to soldiers returning from Afghanistan, and their counselors were saying, "How are you?" Which is a standard question. And these guys had no way to answer that question. They would just sit there and stare like, I don't even know where to start. Like, how do I answer that question? And so they came up with this basic traffic light kind of scenario. And it literally is, I have this, I have this, oh, I have 5 of these. And you can click through them. And where you have the most check marks is the color that you're at today. So, I could have somebody say, "How are you today?" And I could say, "You know what? I'm yellow orange today. I just feel really shaky." And everybody gets that. It's like, "Oh, wow, okay, so you're having a hard time." And you know what? I could say, "I'm in the red today. I'm going home. I need to call my doctor." So what we recommend, or what the Mental Health Commission of Canada recommends, is that if you're in the orange and the red, then you need to be talking to a doctor, and whether that's medication or counseling or both. We find that people respond quicker and better if they do both at the same time. But we can help people get through it. Now, the full-blown sheet that I'll share, and it's an interactive thing on the website, also talks about what can you do at each phase that will help you get back on track. So what we want to do is move you back into the green, and people move back and forth all the time. So it's not unusual for people to go left to right, but we always want to be moving you towards the green. So it's a pretty simple model. I really like that it's based on a traffic light. We all get that. Green is good, red is bad. But it takes the unknown out of how to answer that question. So anyway, it's a tool. If you want to use it, or if you have any questions about it, you can always contact me, and I can walk you through it. But I think it's really great. Now, right here in St. Albert, there's some amazing resources that you can tap into. So if an employee or family member feels that they need either addiction or mental health counseling, this is the number that you would call. I wonder if you can see my cursor. Probably. Okay, so this 4242424 is their way of saying we're open 24 hours. They're subtle. This is a general intake number for Alberta Health Services, and they take all of the people who are asking for services, and then they send them out to whatever your local clinic is. So although we have a St. Albert, Alberta Health Services mental health and addictions office, you cannot call them and say, "I want to see a therapist." They will say, "Great, call 242424." All right, so it has to go through this central intake number, and then it'll be sent up to the Alberta Health Services locally. Now, they might have a waiting list. I haven't called them to see what the delay might be, but this is always your first step. It's free, it's covered by our taxes, and it gives you access to psychologists, counseling social workers, and psychiatrists. It's a great option. Another option, of course, is just to go and see your doctor. Any general practitioner is able to prescribe mental health medications. So there's anti-anxiety, antidepressant medications that are common and that work well. Although depression and anxiety are the most common of the mental illnesses, about 80% of people who come and get medication respond well to it. And that's huge. I mean, 80% as a efficacy is an excellent number. All right, so what if you call Alberta Health Services and they say, great, we'll see you in 6 months because they're really backed up? I don't know that that's true. But if there is a long wait and you've got somebody who's really struggling and they need counseling now, one of the things that you can do is access the St. Albert Crisis Aversion Fund. It's called a bunch of different things. Um, and it was just recently featured in the newspaper by T8N Together Fund. It's also called the Emergency and Crisis Fund, but the official name is the Crisis Aversion Fund. Now, you can call my office at St. Albert FCSS and ask to access the Aversion Fund, and they can help pay for private practice. So we have private practice psychologists all over St. Albert, and they usually charge between $125 to $200 an hour. And most people would find that cost prohibitive. So the Crisis Aversion Fund can definitely help if you've got an employee that really needs help. So St. Albert FCSS and Community Services, we have a counseling section. So we have I think only 3 counselors, and some of them just see youth and some of them see adults. And this is a new thing that we're doing. So again, that's a free counseling service. But because we don't have that many staff, I'm not sure if it would be a wait to get in to see us as well. And then there's the 24/7 distress line. This is run by the Canadian Mental Health Association, and they'll really take the time to listen to somebody. So if it's 2 o'clock in the morning and somebody really, really needs to talk, but they don't want to wake up their whole family, but they're feeling really distressed, this is the number to call. They are fully trained in suicide intervention, as well as they're just great listeners. That's absolutely, I think, the best distress line that we have available in the Edmonton area. Now, the Mental Health Commission of Canada, that first link, the Mental Health Continuum self-check tool, that's the one where you can click off symptoms, and it's just really cool. I think it's a cool thing. I've got COVID-19 resources for the workplace, and the Working Mind self-care and resilience guide. The Working Mind is a training program that's completely based around that mental health continuum and the traffic light. And then my last option is Wellness Together Canada, which is a federal resource, but it's online counseling. That can be, somebody might want to text, they might want to email, But I believe they also do Zoom for their kind of face-to-face counseling. But it will give you support, resources, and connect you to a professional. So that's another option. And again, I'll say it, it's free, and we love free. Free is good. All right. So also, you will be sent, I believe Amanda's going to be connecting with you afterwards and sending you 3 PDFs. So there's 2 PDFs that are posters that you can print and put up in your workplace. And one of them is about the community services help, which is where I work. And one of them's Life is Hard with some help numbers. And I've also created a self-care and resources kind of page. And it's just reminding you of those self-care tips and then some quick links in the St. Albert area where people can call. And again, that could be something that you print and post on a wall. All right, so that's everything that I wanted to cover today. I didn't think we had time for much else, but I am open to questions now.
If there's any questions, you can feel free to just type it in the chat or directly, you can directly pop it over to Pam. If you want to speak, you can raise your hand and you can unmute your mic. But I will say thank you, Pam. I got so much out of this presentation, a lot of helpful resources. Absolutely. I mean, everything you were saying was true, I think, across a lot of different industries and environments. It's all workplaces, just you have different things that you do on the job. One of the things that came to mind, maybe as a leader, how to recognize those stress responses in others, because some of them, I mean, mental health, sometimes there is a physical response, but sometimes it hasn't really shown itself yet, or maybe people are very quiet and introverted. Is there a way to maybe recognize that those oranges or even the yellows and oranges in your employees, so you can, maybe suggest what they do, and maybe what is the right thing to do at that point? Should they send them home, or should they just have a talk? Or
That is a great question. So when we talk about how do you know when somebody else is struggling, um, we look for behavior change. So if somebody has always been a very intense introvert and they're still an intense introvert, then they're probably doing just fine. But if you've got somebody who's always loud and boisterous and a real extrovert, and they're really quiet, that is the time to be stepping up and saying, are you okay today? You're so quiet. And anytime you say, are you okay? I always suggest that you list a symptom or two that you've just witnessed that made you ask. You're so quiet today. You look tired today. Um, you know, um, just to kind of give them an idea, this isn't coming out of nowhere. There's a reason I asked this question. Now, as for the question of do I send them home? Are they going home to a completely empty house with no support and nothing but maybe negative thinking and suicidal thoughts? That's not a great option.
yeah,
So, the more you know about their situation, the better. I mean, if they're kind of they're kind of having a moment where they're kind of breaking a little bit and they're crying their eyes out, that's the time to be saying, is there someone I could call?
mm,
Right? A friend or a family member who can come and get you because they shouldn't be driving in that state. That's not safe. But is there somebody I can call to connect you and help you through this?
that's great. Yeah, and I really liked the idea about the staff to check in on each other, maybe creating a buddy system. That that's great, and I mean, even pre-COVID, that's always good to have. Your close team. Maybe not crossing too many personal boundaries, but just creating more communication, making communication accessible, like outside of the office. Sometimes it's about picking up a shift, but you can also say, hey, how are you doing? And You
Yeah,
know, how's your family? How's your dog? You know, some people live alone, and it's been really hard for people that live alone as well. And so if you can ask anything about their life or how they're doing or what they're looking forward to, that helps.
sounds good.
Thank you so much. Bob's asked if the contact numbers and web links from the last couple of slides would be provided on
Yes,
the
in those
PDFs, and I
PDFs.
yes, and I will share those out. Thank you so much, Bob. And this session has also been recorded, so we'll have a webinar to share with registrants as well. So thank you so much for your time, Pam. Thanks for those that attended, and have a good rest of your day. And take care.
Thanks, Amanda.
Thanks, Pam.